There is a place in Boston that is not quite a museum. It is a time capsule. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. A Venetian palace spirited away to America, where every room, every painting, every object remains exactly as its eccentric founder left it over a century ago. It is a world frozen in time. But if you walk through its quiet, dimly lit galleries, you will see something strange, something unsettling. Here, in the Dutch room, where the masterpieces hang, you will find this: an empty frame. And another one, over here. These are not placeholders. They are not waiting for a painting to return from loan. They are scars. Wounds left open for over 30 years. They are the ghosts of a crime that has never been solved. In a single night, 13 masterpieces were ripped from these walls and vanished from the face of the earth. It was the largest property theft in history and the greatest unsolved art heist of all time. This is not just the story of that crime. This is the story of the ghosts that were stolen that night. The story of the priceless, irreplaceable souls that are still missing from these empty frames. The Ghost of the Concert. Of all the ghosts that haunt the Gardner Museum, one is more famous, more valuable, and more tragically missed than any other. The Ghost of the Concert. To understand the scale of this loss, you must first understand its creator, Johannes Vermeer, a Dutch master who worked in almost complete obscurity and produced fewer than 40 known paintings in his entire lifetime. He was not a painter of grand battles or kings. He was a painter of light, of silence, of small, perfect, intimate moments, frozen forever in time. And the concert was perhaps his most perfect moment. A quiet, dimly lit room. 2 women and a man gathered around a harpsichord, lost in their music. A scene of calm, domestic harmony. But it is the light, the famous Vermeer light, that is the true subject of the painting. Light that pours in from a window on the left, touching the silk of a dress, glinting off the dark varnish of a viola da gamba, pooling gently on the black and white checkered floor. It is a painting that you don't just see. You hear the quiet music. You feel the stillness of the room across the centuries. There are only 34 authenticated Vermeers in the world today. This was one of them. It is considered the single most valuable stolen object of any kind, in any category. Its value today is estimated at over $250 million, but in truth, it is priceless. You cannot put a price on a ghost. This small, quiet, perfect world, this priceless masterpiece, was one of the first things the thieves targeted that night. So how did 2 men dressed as police officers in the middle of a cold March night manage to walk away with a piece of history this important? To understand that, we must go back. Back to the night the ghosts were made. March 18th, 1990. 81 minutes of darkness. The night is cold. The streets of Boston are quiet, still littered with the remnants of St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Inside the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, only 2 night watchmen are on duty. Rick Abath, age 23, and his partner, Randy Heston. 1:24 a.m. A fire alarm begins to blare through the empty halls, seemingly without reason. Abath does a quick patrol, finds nothing, and silences it. A few minutes later, the buzzer at the side entrance rings. Through the intercom, 2 Boston police officers on the other side of the door state they are responding to a report of a disturbance. They ask to be let in. It was against every rule in the museum's security protocol, but Abbott makes a fatal decision. He buzzes them in. One of the officers tells Abbott he looks familiar, that there might be a warrant out for his arrest, and asks him to step away from the main security desk, away from the only panic button in the entire museum. Abbott complies. In an instant, his hands are forced behind his back, and he feels the cold click of handcuffs. He realizes his mistake far too late. These are not cops. The other guard is quickly subdued. The thieves' first words to them are chillingly calm. "Gentlemen, this is a robbery. You will not be harmed." Both guards are led down to the museum's basement, bound with duct tape and handcuffed to pipes. The thieves are now completely alone, with $500 million worth of irreplaceable art at their mercy. And for the next 81 minutes, they go to work. But their movements are strange. They are not a swift, professional smash-and-grab team. They are slow, methodical, almost casual. They walk past a priceless Raphael. They ignore the museum's single most valuable painting, Titian's The Rape of Europa. Instead, they head straight for the Dutch room, the heart of the collection. They smash the glass on a small Rembrandt self-portrait. They pull Vermeer's The Concert from the wall. And then, they approach Rembrandt's only known seascape, a masterpiece of chaos and light, churning with biblical power. They don't gently unframe it. They take out a blade and brutally cut the ancient canvas, directly from its stretcher. The ghost of the storm. The painting they desecrated was a titan. Rembrandt's only known seascape, the storm on the Sea of Galilee. If Vermeer was the master of silence, Rembrandt van Rijn was the master of chaos, of raw human emotion, of high drama captured in oil and light. And this painting was his masterpiece of chaos. A tiny boat tossed on a furious, churning black sea. A great, frothing wave crashes over the bow, tearing at the mast and sail. The disciples are in a state of absolute panic. Some are screaming, some are praying, some are desperately trying to fight the storm. It is a scene of pure, primal terror, of humanity completely at the mercy of a violent, indifferent nature. But look closer. In the middle of the boat, amidst the chaos, there is one figure, holding onto his cap, looking directly out of the canvas, looking directly at you. It is Rembrandt himself, the only calm face in the storm, the artist placing himself inside his own creation, staring into the abyss with us. This world of sound and fury, of desperate faith and existential dread, was reduced, in that moment, to a simple object, a piece of canvas to be taken. The thieves' blade sliced through the 350-year-old threads. The sound, in the silent museum, must have been like a scream. They tore it from its frame. They rolled it up, carelessly, creasing the ancient paint, cracking the varnish. A masterpiece, treated like a common poster. And just like that, the ghost of the storm was captured and taken into the darkness. But the theft of these two titans, the Vermeer and the Rembrandt, was only the beginning of the mystery. The choices the thieves made next would turn this case from a simple, brutal robbery into one of the most baffling puzzles in the history of crime. A baffling crime scene. The sun rises over Boston. The morning shift change arrives at the museum. The alarm is raised. The police are called. Then, the FBI. The world's greatest art heist is now a federal case. And the detectives who walk into the Gardner that morning step into one of the strangest, most contradictory crime scenes they will ever encounter. On one hand, the thieves' entry was flawless, professional. They neutralized the guards and the alarm system in minutes. But on the other hand, their choices inside the museum made no sense at all. In the Titian room, they walked right past the museum's single most valuable painting, Titian's The Rape of Europa, an undisputed masterpiece worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They didn't even touch it. But moments later, in the short gallery, they went to great effort to steal an object that was practically worthless. A bronze eagle finial sitting atop a Napoleonic flag. They ignored the priceless silk flag and took only the decorative metal eagle. Their methods were brutish, the work of common thugs. Instead of carefully removing the masterpieces from their stretchers, they were smashed, cut, and ripped from their frames, leaving jagged edges of canvas behind. And their exit was just as baffling. Before they left, they went to the security director's office. They took the videotapes from the VCR that had recorded their entry, but they completely missed the hard drive data from the motion sensors. Data which gave the FBI a precise timeline of their every move for all 81 minutes. So who were these thieves? Were they sophisticated art connoisseurs who knew to go straight for the rare Vermeer, but were somehow ignorant of the even more valuable Titian? Were they common criminals who got lucky, but then why the elaborate police disguise and the calm, controlled entry? Were they professionals, or were they fools? The evidence pointed in both directions at once. It was a crime scene filled with contradictions, a puzzle with pieces that refused to fit. And the puzzle wasn't limited to the major masterpieces they stole. The smaller, lesser-known ghosts they took that night would only make the mystery even deeper. The lesser ghosts. The Vermeer and the Rembrandt were the headlines. The billion-dollar losses. But they were not the only ghosts created that night. The thieves' full shopping list was even more bizarre. From a downstairs gallery, they took Chez Tortoni by the great French painter, Edouard Manet. A modern masterpiece, a snapshot of Parisian café life. It was the only painting they stole from the entire first floor. Why this one? What was its significance to them? And then came perhaps the strangest theft of all. From a single small cabinet in the short gallery, they stole 5 sketches by Edgar Degas. These weren't grand paintings. They were small, intimate charcoal studies of horses and jockeys. Easy to carry, yes, but of far less monetary value than countless other works they walked right past. It felt personal. As if the thieves weren't stealing for profit, but for a specific, unknown purpose. And their final prize was the oldest ghost of them all, a Chinese bronze gu, an ancient ceremonial beaker, over 3,000 years old, from the Shang dynasty. What possible connection could this ancient Chinese artifact have to a collection of French and Dutch masterpieces? It was another piece of the puzzle that simply did not fit. So let's review the final haul. A priceless Vermeer. A biblical epic by Rembrandt. A slice of 19th century Paris. 5 small horse sketches. A worthless metal eagle. And a 3,000-year-old Chinese beaker. This wasn't the carefully curated list of a master art thief. It felt random, erratic, almost illogical. This bizarre collection of ghosts would become the calling card of the crime, and the first clue for the FBI as they began to hunt for the men responsible. The suspects. The largest art heist in history. And the thieves had vanished without a trace. No fingerprints left behind. No credible witnesses. No ransom note. For the FBI, The case was a ghost hunt from day one. But in a city like Boston, all roads of major crime eventually lead to one place: the mob. Suspicion quickly fell on a local mafia crew, led by a capo named Carmelo Merlino. The theory was simple and classic Boston. The art wasn't stolen to be sold on the open market. That would be impossible. It was stolen to be used as a bargaining chip, a get-out-of-jail-free card for a mobster facing a long prison sentence. Years later, an informant told the FBI that a low-level mob associate, Bobby Donati, had likely masterminded the heist to get his boss out of trouble. But just before Donati could supposedly use the art to make a deal, he was brutally murdered in an unrelated gang war. The location of the paintings, the informant claimed, died with him. Another lead, another dead end. But other investigators looked closer to home, at the young, inexperienced night watchman who broke every rule and let the thieves in, Rick Abeth. Could he have been the inside man? The motion sensor data showed that the only time someone opened the side door that night was during Abeth's shift. Was it a dry run? Was he involved? Abeth has always and vehemently maintained his innocence. The FBI has never officially named him a suspect. But the questions have always lingered. For over 30 years, the case has been a maze of dead ends, a string of fascinating leads that ultimately go nowhere. There were whispers of the art being in the hands of the IRA in Ireland. There were supposed sightings in Japan. There were theories involving international super thieves and eccentric billionaire collectors. Every lead was investigated. Every stone was turned. But the result was always the same: nothing. Today, the case is officially cold. The main suspects are all dead. The $10 million reward remains unclaimed. The FBI has stated publicly that they know who the thieves were, but they have never released their names, citing the ongoing investigation. But knowing who took the art is not the same as knowing where it is. And so, the greatest treasure hunt in modern history continues. But as the years turn into decades, a more somber, more difficult question begins to emerge. Will the ghosts come home? And so the question that emerged in the silence of that cold March night continues to echo more than 30 years later. But as the years turn into decades, the question is no longer just where the art is. Many investigators now fear the paintings were likely damaged or destroyed in the days after the heist by the amateur thieves, who had no idea how to properly care for their priceless loot. The new, more heartbreaking question is, do they even still exist? And so, the Gardner heist becomes a story about more than just a crime. It becomes a story about absence, about a wound in our shared culture that may never heal. Because the true value of these works was never in the millions of dollars. The value was in the seeing. The value was in standing in that quiet Dutch room and letting a master who lived 350 years ago show you a moment of perfect, silent light. Or the terror and faith of men caught in a storm at sea. And that has been stolen from all of us. Perhaps forever. Which is why the empty frames still hang on the walls of the museum. They are not just placeholders. They are a promise, and they are a memorial. A memorial for the ghosts that were taken that night, and a faint, desperate promise that one day they might just come home. But as the silence stretches into another year and another, that promise feels more and more like a prayer. The frames remain empty, a permanent testament to a perfect crime and a perfect loss. And they ask one final, silent question to every person who stands before them. How can something so beautiful, so important, simply vanish?
More stories they tried to erase.